There's a version of you that most people never think to ask about. Not the version that showed up to school plays or family dinners. Not the version that got praised for being so mature, so dependable, so good. But the version that stayed up late worrying about things children shouldn't have to worry about. The version that learned, early on, that being needed felt safer than being free. If you were always the responsible sibling, chances are you grew up carrying a weight that no one ever officially handed to you. It just landed on your shoulders. And somehow, without anyone asking, you became the one who kept things together, the one who remembered, the one who stepped up, the one who quietly sacrificed your own needs so that things wouldn't fall apart. Most people would look at that and call you lucky, mature, strong. But what if I told you that what you carried wasn't just responsibility, it was a kind of invisible training, a psychological shaping that quietly built something rare inside of you, something that most people spend their entire lives trying to develop and never quite do. Today we're going to talk about 5 rare traits that responsible siblings almost always carry into adulthood. And I want you to stay with me through all 5, because by the end of this, I think you're going to understand yourself in a way you never quite have before. Trait number 1. You have an almost unsettling ability to read a room. When you grew up being responsible for others, you had to pay attention in ways other kids didn't. You learned to sense tension before it became an argument. You learned to read your parents' moods the moment they walked through the door. You became, without realizing it, an expert in the emotional weather of the people around you. Psychology calls this heightened emotional attunement. Research shows that children who take on caretaking roles early in life often develop advanced empathy and social perception, far beyond what their peers are capable of at the same age. You weren't born reading people this clearly. You were trained by your circumstances. Think about how this shows up in your adult life. You're the one who notices when a friend is off, even when they say they're fine. You're the one who picks up on the unspoken tension in a room that everyone else is oblivious to. You feel things in the air before they've been said out loud. Most people experience this ability as a burden, and it can be, but here's the reframe. You are someone who almost never misses what matters. In a world full of people who are distracted, self-absorbed, and emotionally unavailable, your ability to truly see others is extraordinarily rare, and it makes you the kind of person that people feel genuinely safe with, often without knowing exactly why. Trait number 2. You carry a quiet, unshakable resilience that you've probably never given yourself credit for. There's a specific kind of strength that develops when you don't have the luxury of falling apart. When you were the responsible one, breaking down wasn't really an option. Someone needed dinner. Someone needed help with homework. Someone needed to not see you crying. So you learned to hold yourself together, even when you were crumbling on the inside. Now, I want to be careful here because I'm not saying that was fair. It wasn't. You deserve someone to lean on too. But what that experience created in you, almost as a byproduct, is a resilience that goes bone deep. Research in developmental psychology suggests that individuals who navigate high-responsibility childhoods often develop what's called post-traumatic growth, a genuine strengthening of character that emerges from sustained difficulty. This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending it wasn't hard. It's about acknowledging that you came through something and that the coming through changed you. You know how to keep going when things get hard because you've always had to. You know how to function under pressure because pressure was your baseline. And while other people panic when life gets uncertain, you have this quiet, almost eerie steadiness. Not because you're emotionless, but because you've already survived so much that very little truly breaks you. That steadiness, it's one of the rarest things a human being can possess. Trait number 3, you have a deeply developed sense of personal responsibility and a complex relationship with asking for help. Here's where things get a little more tender, and I want you to stay with me. Because of the role you played growing up, you internalized a belief, probably without ever consciously choosing it, that being responsible meant never being the one who needed rescuing. Needing help felt like failing. Struggling felt like weakness. And so you became remarkably self-sufficient, capable, someone who figures things out. Psychology shows that parentified children, which is what researchers call children who take on adult responsibilities, often grow into adults with an extraordinary work ethic, high internal standards, and a deep sense of personal accountability. People look at you and see someone who has it together, someone reliable, someone who gets things done. And that's real. That's genuinely you. But here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. That same wiring that makes you so capable can also make it incredibly hard to let others in. To say, I'm struggling. To believe that you are just as worthy of care as the people you've always cared for. If you find it difficult to ask for help, if you feel faintly guilty when you're not being productive, if you sometimes feel like your value is tied to what you do for others, rather than simply who you are, this is where that comes from. And recognizing that is not a small thing. It's actually the beginning of something important. Because you already know how to show up for everyone else. The rare and beautiful work ahead of you is learning, slowly and gently, to show up for yourself with the same loyalty. Trait number 4. You have an extraordinary capacity for love. The kind that's expressed through action, not just words. People who grew up responsible often express love differently than others. For you, love was never just a feeling. It was something you did. It was making sure things were taken care of. It was checking in, following through, being there. Love for you was a verb long before you had the language to describe it that way. Research on attachment styles and caregiving behavior consistently finds that individuals who took on nurturing roles early in life often become deeply devoted, thoughtful, and action-oriented in their adult relationships. You don't just say you care, you show it, consistently, sometimes at great personal cost. Think about the people in your life right now. How often do you remember the little things, the appointments they mentioned, the worries they shared, the things that matter to them? How often do you quietly do something kind without needing recognition for it? How often do you sacrifice your comfort to protect someone else's peace? That's not ordinary. That is a rare and profound way of loving. The shadow side, of course, is that you may have spent much of your life loving people who didn't love you back in the same language, who took what you gave without fully seeing the cost to you. And that can leave a specific kind of exhaustion, a specific kind of grief that's hard to explain to someone who hasn't felt it. But your capacity to love deeply is not the problem. The opportunity is in learning to direct that love toward people who are capable of receiving it with the same depth you bring, and toward yourself, who has perhaps been waiting the longest for your own devotion. Trait number 5. You possess a rare and quiet wisdom that most people only arrive at much later in life, if ever. There's something that happens when you spend your formative years navigating adult complexity as a child. You skip over a certain kind of innocence, yes, but in its place you develop a perspective, a groundedness that most of your peers simply don't have. You understand in a visceral way that life is complicated, that people are flawed, that love and pain often exist in the same relationship at the same time. You don't have the luxury of black and white thinking because you lived in the gray for so long. And that has given you a nuance, a depth, a quiet wisdom that shows up in the way you think, the way you listen, and the way you navigate the world. Studies in psychological development suggest that early exposure to complexity, when processed and reflected upon, can accelerate what researchers call wisdom development, the ability to hold contradictory truths, to see multiple perspectives simultaneously, and to make meaning from difficult experience. You have been doing this your entire life. People come to you when they need real advice, not platitudes. When they need someone who won't flinch at the complicated truth. when they need someone who actually understands what it means to carry something heavy and keep walking anyway. You earned that wisdom in ways that weren't always fair, but it belongs to you, and it is worth something profound. So let me close with this. If you were always the responsible sibling, the world probably told you that your maturity was a gift to others. And maybe it was. But what I want you to hear today is that it was also a gift to you, even when it didn't feel like one. It built you. It shaped you. It gave you things that most people spend decades searching for and never find. You are more emotionally intelligent than you give yourself credit for, more resilient than you've ever been told, more capable of deep, meaningful love than almost anyone around you. And you deserve now to stop only giving that to others. You deserve to receive it. From the right people, yes, but most importantly, from yourself. If something in this video made you feel seen, I want you to know that's not an accident. This channel exists for people like you, people who think deeply, feel deeply, and are finally ready to understand themselves more fully. Subscribe if you haven't already, and keep watching, because there is so much more of yourself left to discover.